Okay, let's have a look at painting this archer here from the Wargames Atlantic plastic set that came with the Baron's War starter set. So I've already finished painting the red archers, so now I'm going to do the blue archers. So let's start with his beautiful blue tunic. To give the guys at TT Combat a bit of a shout out, I'll go with their triad system. We'll go with Throwing Shade Blue as a base, Poster Boy Blue as a medium tone, and then EAA Blue as sort of a final highlight. I'm going to add a bit of white with that. That's on my palette here to finish it off. Okay, starting with that blue base, I'm going to paint all of his tunic. Just with one. Probably only need one. It's got good coverage on these heavily pigmented paints, so we should just do one coat for him, and then when we come back, we'll start applying that mid-tone Poster Boy Blue. Okay, I've got the whole gang out now, so I decided to paint them all at the same time as I go from layer up to layer. So we've got the mid blue here, the Poster Boy Blue, and now I'm just going to layer that over the top. So just working on the principle of going from dark and then building up our highlights here. So this will probably take a couple of coats. And yeah, what we're really trying to do is just not get that paint in the folds. Now you could go the other way and start with a mid-tone and shade down with an ink as well, if you want to avoid this whole process. But for me, I'm just more comfortable doing it this way. Okay, with that now done, we're going to get our lighter blue and start placing some highlights here. And yeah, with those three different gradients of blue, you got a nice subtle graduation there, which is nice. I think most paint systems do that these days, don't they? Have like a triad system. And if I want to blend through, I've got all three mixes here. And I can blend through a nice little highlight at the bottom there. So in a way, kind of sketching in the highlights here and there, and being more precise when I'm doing these line-in highlights. And when I've got more of a broad space of area, then I'll probably just lay down a heavy amount of paint and then sort of just blend it through, and then come in later and pick out some highlights in amongst that. So a very sort of old school approach to painting, but I kind of like it. And well, I am old school really, in a way. So this is how I sort of learned how to paint, and it's treated me well so far. But I can understand why people want to use speed paints and contrast paints to get a very quick, effective looking paint job, very easily. I would have been playing Baron's War a lot earlier, if that was the case. So, okay, so we've got that sort of highlight there. I've just got a bit of white on my palette here, and I'm just going to mix it in with this blue. And I'm just going to just pick out just probably the last sort of highlights around the cuff of the shirts and just here and there where I think we could sort of emphasize the highlights more. Okay, so I think it looks fairly sharp. We can sort of tidy up areas a little bit later on as we progress through the miniature, and at the end we sort of do like a final tidy up session. And I've got all my paints still on here, so I can always go back and touch something up when I think, oh well, that just needs a little bit of more refining here and there. But so far I think he looks quite nice. So what we might do now, shall we do the flesh tones now? Okay, so let's do the flesh tones and give this guy a face. Okay, now we're going to go into flesh. I'm going to use Rumble's skin as a base and Halfling's skin as the mid-tone highlight. Okay, Let's use some of this rumble skin first. It's got a nice orangey brown colour to it. So I'm going to give a base coat to this guy and the other Bowmen, and give that a couple of coats. And when we come back, we're ready to highlight it. Before we go to highlighting the flesh, I'm just going to give the flesh a bit of a sienna wash. Just add some more detail and depth to the skin tone. So I'll just go and do that now on these guys and come back to do the highlighting. Okay, so I'm just going to grab some of my base skin tone here and start going over all those raised edges of the face and sort of almost like paint his face in. So his chin, nose, cheekbones. And if it's a bit too light, which I think it is, I might just mix a little bit of that brown in there. Okay, now we've got that in there. I want to just add a bit of rouge to his face just to give it a bit more life. So I'm just going to grab a nice red for that. Capo red. Okay, now I've got that here. I'm just going to really water that down and add some of that flesh colour in there. Like so. And almost kind of like a wash. I'm just going to wash over these areas of his face. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that at that stage. And I might just add some little bit of highlights at the end when that's completely dry. So from now, I think we'll go into the other parts of his clothing. So he has some boots, so they're going to be, I'm going to make them all black. They have some belts or ropes around their waists. They will be in a more of a brown colour. Their coifs will be in a brown. Their bows will be also in a brown, light brown. And then we'll finish off with the metallics helmets on the end, and then the bases. Okay, just give some more TT paints, TT combat paints, I should say. We've got driftwood brown. This is like an ivory colour, matte brown, and marsh green. So we'll go with those colours for now. The driftwood brown. Okay, we're going to just paint all the bows with that first. Okay, so I'll start applying all the base coats, and then when we come back, we can get into the fun stuff. Okay, we're just back here now on a different day, new palette, and I've just got some colours I put on the palette there, and so this time I'm going to start going over that leather coif there, the belt, it's like a rope belt, and just doing the pants and shoes, and finally the metallics, and finish this little warband off. Okay, so let's get stuck into, just got some driftwood brown here, and I'm just going to go straight over the top of that base that I put on there. It should be matte brown. So getting excited as we're almost at the end. And I also, using some very dark brown, just did the base and got it ready to dry so I can dry brush some highlights on there. Okay, so let me just get to do this, and then we'll come back and go on to the next step. Okay, I'm just going to use some of that driftwood brown, and I'm just going to go over that belt as a sort of a dark colour behind it, and get a nice lighter colour here. We're going to do that in dark brown as well. It's a really nice colour, actually, that driftwood. It sort of serves a lot of different purposes, actually. That was good. Right, now to highlight that driftwood either on the bow or the belt, I'm just got some ivory here. And that I'll just lay the brush on its side and just using the flat of my brush on the side, just put a highlight there. Okay, now on here, I'm just going to pick them out individually. And do that right across the belt. And when we come back, we can look at doing the boots and his pants. Okay, so that's done now, and I've also just lined in the same highlight around his leather coif here as well. Okay, so I think that looks okay for now. We'll just go straight into doing the blacks now. I've got this Periscopes, which is a Vallejo, I think it's one of the Panzer Acer colors, and I really like using this for black. So I'm going to actually just, I'm actually going to paint his pants black. And with the Periscopes, all I really do is sort of just go in and just go over the highlights here, where I want the light to be. And as it's black already, it's fairly easy just to go through and line in your highlights. And Periscopes is an amazing color. Love it. So I did all my knights for the Hospitaller knights that I've done for Attribution, all done with this as a highlight for the black. Just find it a really nice color. So we've done that. We've just got this light grey here. I think it's called Ostrich Feather Grey or something from TT Combat. And I'm just going to line in my highlights. So not an awful lot of blending involved here, but you can, you know, as long as you get some subtle sort of highlights and colors in, it's not overly contrasting, yeah, it can work pretty well. Now the boots I think we'll do in grey. So I've got this sort of mid-tone grey here. I'll use that as the base coat, and I'll just put the base coat on here, and we'll come back, we'll do the highlights on it. Okay, with that base coat down, I'm just going to grab some of that lighter grey here, and pretty much the same as the other stuff. I'm just going to throw some lines here, just around the edges and that kind of thing, just to define it more. Because I sort of want to get these guys done in a pretty good time. I want to not have to spend an awful lot of time doing blending and that kind of thing. So just throwing in some quick highlights will do the trick and make them still look quite nice. Okay, with that done, I think we're ready to go to metallics and see how I approach that. Again, it's pretty simple and straightforward, so we'll come back with some silver on our palette and some inks. So the paints I'll use for that is Supernova Chrome. As my silver metallic, I've got blue and black wash here from TT Combat. Okay, so with our silver, I'm just going to apply that straight to the helmet. The metallics I do are not too bad actually, even though I prefer Vallejo metallics. These are not bad at all. I've got some pretty good coverage on it, and I've just got a bronze and some other different kinds of silvers and a couple of golds. And yeah, so far so good. Okay, so for the wash, I've just got some black wash here. Got a little bit of blue wash as well, and I'll just mix that in with there just a little bit. I'll just give the, just remove a lot of the excess, but give the helmet a wash. We're getting very close, and I'm very excited now to see this realize. So now we'll just go to the base once that's dry, and I'll show you how I do my basing and how we can finish off this group of archers. And for highlighting the bases, I just use some like ochre, something like light browns and that kind of thing. It's not rocket science. Anything that's, you know, going to be a lighter brown will do. And Just going to give that a nice coating with this, and then we'll use some pigments and other basing materials that I'll stick on top of that to finish her off. So this will be really nice and simple, nothing too complicated, and you can knock them out pretty quickly. So let me just go ahead and do that. Let me just cover these, go a bit lighter. Okay, so for basing for pigments, I use these Vallejo pigments. I've had these for more than 15 years now, so they'll last quite a long time. There's so much in here. Just getting a dry brush, which is important, but you can wet it, and you can add water to it if you want to. I've done that before. I'm just going to quickly apply some of this to the base, and that just adds some of the light green grass or just the moss or something to the base, and I just found that just a nice way of adding some color to the bases. Okay, in terms of topping the bases, I've got some stuff here that I picked up from the sort of model hobby shops. Some really cool little tufts of sort of sponge green, and then just picked up stuff as I went along. I do like the really short tufts personally. I don't really like long ones, so I've got this one from Green Stuff World while I was in Tokyo recently, and I just picked up a couple of these army painted ones. Probably they're just a bit easier to get here, depending on the supplier. So I'm just going to start applying these to the bases now. Okay, just dipping them in some glue, some PVA glue here. I'll start putting some in places on the bases, filling up all those horrible gaps that were left there from the textured filler that I use, textured paint. Okay, even though those flock strips have adhesive backs on them, I tend to put some PVA glue on them anyway. And this little bastard stuck to it. And I'll just stick those around the bases. I've got this adhesive sheet here. These are much, much nicer than using that horrible grass, that static grass stuff people use, which is really horrible to see. Personally, I really don't like it, so these are much, much nicer, and the shorter they are, the better. It doesn't detract away from the miniature, because I find that a lot of those figures that have, or people who put so much basing on them, it really detracts away from the paint job and the miniature itself. Then you're just looking at the base, and that's, I want the base to be really subtle. And then I'll let this to dry, and then after that, when I come back, when it's all dry, I will just add some highlights to the edges of that grass material, just to add some, just to give them a bit more volume to it. Otherwise they can look a bit flat, and I like adding a little bit of extra volume to those grass ends. Okay, and for the last stage, we're going to use some of this ice yellow from Vallejo as our highlight on the tufts on our bases. That's basically all you need to do. That's my kind of way of doing things anyway. Like I just like to give those little tufts some shape with that nice ice yellow. And just gives it a bit of body. Nice bit of whiskey and Coke that I can enjoy after having completed the arches. So both blue and red now. So I'm really happy about that. And it just means I can now go on to the levy units and wrap them up. And that's the entire set complete. So I hope this video was enjoyable to watch. To be honest, I don't watch a lot of painting videos. I just don't find them very interesting for me personally, but I know a lot of people really like them. So I'll try to make as many painting videos as I can as I progress through projects and stuff like that.
So the next will be the levy. So if you do want to see a painting video on one of the units that I'll paint for the levy, please let me know. So there's some spearmen and there's some just like swordsmen and that kind of thing, just with hand weapons. So if that's something you want to see on the channel, please let me know. And again, my goal is to complete that by the end of the year. So let's see how I go. Otherwise, early next year. But it'll be nice to see everything finished and everything painted, and I can just go into whatever I wanted to do after that. So until then, guys, look, if I don't see you before Christmas, have a wonderful holiday with your family and friends. Stay safe, and yeah, God bless. Cheers. Take care.